We're going to start part 3 of Thunder Cave on chapter 18, page 152. By late afternoon, we reached a crude road that ran along the Groom Escarpment. What do we do now? I asked. We will look for your father's camp. What about the cave? The cave is very near, Sepit said, and the moon isn't full, so there's time. I looked around. To our right was a steep hill. I pointed to it. We might be able to see something from up there. Sepit nodded. We started up the hill. It was a difficult climb, but the view was worth it. On top, we could see for miles. The escarpment ran along the eastern base of the Lebetero Hills. Lebetero Hills, which were at least 25 miles long. On the map, they hadn't looked this big. There, Sepit pointed. A plume of dust rose in the distance, and it was a few moments before I could tell what was causing it. It's a truck, I said excitedly. Maybe it's my father, or maybe they know where he is. I started down the hill, but Sepit grabbed my arm and jerked me back. Wait, he said. Why? I was irritated. I need to get to the road. They won't see us up here, and they'll drive right by. Just wait, Sepit insisted. It will take no time to get to the bottom of the hill. I didn't want to wait, but I did as he asked. We watched as the truck slowed to a stop, and 2 men jumped out of the back and walked to the front of the truck. Poachers, Sepit said. The same men from before. The same truck. His eyesight must have been a lot better than mine. How can you tell? Look. He pointed down to the left. About half a mile away, a small herd of elephants stood in a grove of trees. They are after the elephants, Sepit said. The elephants have been running for a long time, but they are tired now. That's why they're bunched together in those trees. I looked back at the truck. It moved about 200 yards up the road, then stopped. The 2 men got out again and looked for elephant signs in the dust. I had to stop them. My rage returned. I wouldn't stand by and watch them butcher more elephants. Before Sepit could stop me, I began bounding down the steep hillside. No, Jacob, he yelled after me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. When I got to the bottom, I looked to my right and saw the truck racing up the road. I glanced back up the hill and saw Sepit coming down after me. I didn't wait for him. I ran across the road towards the elephants. When I was 50 yards away, I started to wave my hands and yell as loud as I could. The elephants began to trumpet and move around nervously. I scooped up a rock and threw it at the rump of the nearest elephant. It swung around and flared its ears, but when the elephant saw me still running towards it, it turned and ran away. The rest of the herd followed. I stopped and put my hands on my knees, trying to catch my breath as I watched the elephants stampede away. I didn't know if they'd get away from the poachers, but at least I had delayed another pointless slaughter. I turned, expecting to see angry Sepit running up behind me. Instead, I saw the poacher's truck bounce off the road and head directly toward the grove of trees. I ran further into the grove, frantically looking for a place to hide, hoping they hadn't seen me. Then I heard rapid gunfire and saw the tree bark splintering all around me. Wrong again, Drake. I froze, then very, very slowly turned around. 2 men with rifles ran up and grabbed me roughly by the arms. Get your hands off me! I tried to twist out of their grasp, but it was no use. They dragged me into the truck and pushed me up against the tailgate. I'm an American, I yelled, and you better... Boom! One of the men hit me in the stomach with the butt of his rifle. I doubled over in agony and dropped to my knees. As I tried to regain my breath, I heard the truck doors slam. 4 poachers, the same number as before. They spoke to each other in what sounded like Swahili. One of them started laughing, and was joined by the other 3. I recognized that cruel sound. Sepit was right again. They were the same poachers. And where was Sepit? Too smart to take on 4 poachers? You idiot! Haven't you been here before, Jake? Nairobi, wasn't it? Yeah, that's it, the dark street. 3 of them that time. I had a very bad feeling that the guys in the street were angels compared to these guys. I looked up at them. They had beards and wore relatively camouflaged fatigues. The tallest man wore a black beret, and I heard one of the men call him Moha. He had a cocked automatic pistol in his hand. When he stopped laughing, so did the other men. I figured he was their leader. He spoke down at me. "You are very stupid," he said in passable English. You're right about that," I thought. "We know you are an American," he continued. "But before I kill you, what is your name?" Kill me? Why would he kill me? All I done was chase a few elephants away. I wasn't going to give him my name if it meant he would pull the trigger as soon as he heard it. "What are you doing here?" "I didn't want you to get those elephants," I said. "We saw what you did, but that does not answer my question. Why are you out here?" I hesitated. "Why are you here?" he yelled and put the pistol barrel next to my head. "I'm looking for my father," I said quickly. "Who is your father?" He emphasized the question by pushing the barrel harder against my skull. My mouth was bone dry, and I could barely get the words out. "Robert Lanza," I whispered. "Who?" he yelled. "Dr. Robert Lanza," I said more loudly. "Lanza," he said, taking the barrel away from my head. "We know Lanza. Does he know you're here?" "Of course," I said. "Stand up," he yelled. I grabbed the tailgate and pulled myself up. "Why are you so far from his camp?" he asked. So they knew where he was. "I'm on my way to the camp," I said. "I see." He put his pistol back in its holster. There are no words for how relieved I was to see him do this. He turned to his men and said something. 2 of them ran off towards the road. He turned back to me. "It seems your friend has run off and left you." He looked at the road. "But we'll find him." "Not unless he wants to be found," I thought. "Who is he?" he asked. "Just a Maasai I ran into," I said. "And a friend of yours?" "No," I said, "just a guy." "I think not," he said. "What were you doing together?" "Just traveling in the same direction," I said. The poacher slapped me across the face, and I fell to the ground. He looked down at me. "That was for lying," he said. "We will take you with us to kill the elephants." He kicked me in the stomach, knocking me halfway under the truck. I threw up. He waited for me to stop retching, then said, "And that was for getting in our way. Don't do it again." Bastard, I thought. Lousy bastard. I would rather die than see the elephants killed. It was bad enough to see it from a distance. Being right there would be horrible. The other poachers ran up to the truck. Sapit wasn't with them. I knew they wouldn't find him. At least my stupidity wasn't going to get him killed too. I moved my head and felt something sharp prick my ear. I jerked away and turned and saw a large clump of razor-sharp thorns. A drop of blood dripped off my ear and splattered in the dust. What next? I thought disgustingly. Then an idea occurred to me. I looked out from under the truck. The poachers were still standing there talking, paying no attention to me. I took hold of the thorn clump and very carefully and quietly pushed it in front of the rear truck wheel. My skin punctured easier than the tire, but it was worth a try. As soon as I had the thorn in place, one of the poachers grabbed me by the ankles and pulled me out from under the truck. "Get in the truck," Moha said. "Your elephants have not gone far." I climbed into the bed among a pile of elephant tusks. He said something to the others, and 2 of them jumped into the bed with me. They pushed me towards the front and tied my wrist to the roll bar over the cab. They started the truck, and with 2 armed poachers flanking me, we headed in the direction of the elephants. I waited for the sound of a blowout, but nothing happened. I was very disappointed. We cut through the grove and on the other side broke out onto the open savanna. I didn't see the elephants, but I knew they probably weren't too far away. It was difficult to keep my feet under me as the truck gathered speed. After about a mile, the truck leaned to the right and swerved. At first I thought the driver was trying to avoid a hole or something, but he slowed down and stopped. One of the poachers went to the back of the truck and looked over the side. He yelled something to Moha, who had stuck his head out the window. They were mad as hell about the flat tire. I couldn't have been more pleased, but I didn't show it. They left me tied to the roll bar as they tried to get the tire changed. They were much better with the rifles than they were with a lug wrench and jack. I took great satisfaction in listening to them yell at each other. The longer they took, the farther away the elephants would be. When they were finished, Mohawk came around to the front of the truck and looked at the darkening sky. He said something to his men, and the two poachers jumped into the back. "What are you going to do with me?" I asked. Instead of answering, he got into the cab and slammed the door. The driver started the truck and turned it around. They might kill me, but at least I wouldn't have to see any more elephants slaughtered. We drove back the way we came, reaching the road along the escarpment just as the sun set behind the Lebetero hills. I kept a sharp eye out for Sepit, but I didn't see a sign of him. There wasn't anything he could do anyway, and he had more important things to do than to try to save some stupid American kid he had befriended. I was on my own. At the road, the truck turned left and headed south. To the side of the road, I saw animals' eyes illuminated by the truck's headlights. We drove for several miles down the dusty road, then came to an abrupt stop in the front of an Impala momentarily blinded by our headlights. It stood frozen in the middle of the road. The driver turned the truck's spotlight on, and the poacher to my right raised his rifle and shot. The Impala dropped where I was standing. The other poacher slapped his friend on the back. They jumped out, picked up the Impala, and carried it back to the truck. The poachers climbed in, took up their positions next to me, and the truck lurched off again. I figured that the Impala was dinner, and that wherever we were going was close by, or they would have cut the Impala's throat and bled it out. I was right. A short time later, the truck stopped and took a very sharp right turn, leaving the road. We went up a very steep grade in low gear. In front of us, I saw the lights of several campfires and lanterns hanging from trees. At least a dozen men were in this camp, perhaps more. Some of them were sitting by the fire cooking, while others were bent over, stretched animal skins, scraping the fat off with knives. The truck pulled up to several other trucks and jeeps and stopped. Everyone got out except for me. Mohawk strode to the middle of the camp and called out. Two young Maasai warriors, armed with spears, ran up to him. He gestured towards the truck as he spoke to them. They nodded and ran over to untie me, then led me to Mohawk. "Welcome to our little camp," he said. I looked around. It was a nightmare. Scattered throughout the camp were huge piles of elephant tusks. Animal skins hung from every branch, and the place reeked with the stink of death. I could hear the innocent buzzing of flies above the sound of the men's voice and laughter. "I can see you like it here," the poacher said, and laughed. "We will feed you and give you water so you don't think we're totally uncivilized." He laughed again and said something to one of the Maasai who ran off. In a moment, the Maasai ran back with a canteen of water and handed it to me. I took a long drink, wishing that I had a little of Sepit's powder. But since they were going to kill me, what difference does it make? "What are you going to do with me?" The poacher looked at me. "You are going to die," he said. "But first, I want you to see us kill your elephant friends." "Why don't you just kill me now?" I said. Being at his mercy didn't mean I had to take this crap. He slapped me, but I didn't fall this time. "Because it doesn't please me to kill you now." He glared at me. "And you may be useful. We shall see." "What do you mean by that?" He ignored the question and said something to the warriors. They took me over to a tree to the edge of the camp, made me sit down, then tied me to it. The warriors took up positions 10 feet away on either side of me and leaned on their spears. Why would they go to all of this trouble only to kill me? I looked at the men, now unloading the ivory from the truck. They were a rough-looking bunch. I couldn't brush the flies away and had to shake my head from time to time to get them off my face. I watched the men and looked up at the carnage. It was a wonder that there were many animals left in Africa